Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Mem Zayin in Bava Kama. As we learned before, based on Sunnah Matzav Shivya, we're at the Mishnah near the bottom of the page. Hakador, a potter. A man put his pottery. Let's call it one potter because he starts with Kaderos, a plural, but then he says Vishavra, broke it. Let's like a man put his pot in his pottery, right? It was an earthenware vessel. So he brought his pot, let's call that, into somebody else's chatzer without permission. And the owner of the chatzer, his animal was roaming around there and broke the pot. So would you say there's any liability on the part of the owner? He came without permission. The guy comes into my yard, right, puts his pot down, and my animal breaks it. What do you want from me? Of course, potter. Im huskaben, there's no real chiddush in it. Im huskaben, let's say my animal tripped on that. My animal fell on your pot and you got injured. Then the balk there is the owner of the pot has to, I don't like the word pot. Pot sounds like metal, like whatever. His jar, whatever, let's call it. He left his glass jar there. Miskaben balk there is chayiv. If the animal of the balachotzer, the owner, the homeowner, we'll call him the homeowner, if his animal got injured by the jar, then the owner of the jar has to pay. You put your jar in my land, my chatzer. You came into my property illegally, and you put your jar there, and my animal got hurt. You have to pay. Im hechnis bershus. Listen carefully. This is going to be a complicated phrase. If you came in with permission, then balachotzer chayev. If he came in with permission, right, and my animal broke your pot, your jar, then the Baal Chotzer is chayiv. Okay, now what does that mean? We're gonna have a discussion in the Gemara because we're gonna have other cases like this now, similar cases. But if you came in with permission, what does that permission mean? I allowed you to come in. Okay, I allowed you to come in. Does it mean that if you come in, I'll guard your animal? I'll make sure nothing happens to it? Is that what you're saying? That's going to be the question. If he came with permission, then the balachotzer is the homeowner is responsible if he does any damage to the jar. We'll talk about this in the more. Now we have other similar cases. I bought my fruits. A man illegally brought your fruits into the homeowner's chatzer. And now, fruits there, you have an animal there. Of course, the animal's going to eat it. Potter, you put your fruits in. What do you want me to pay for your fruits? Who asked you to put your fruits in my yard? And if my animal, let's say, slipped on your fruits, he tripped on them, he slipped on them, they were slippery. You have to pay. You brought a bunch of fruits, prunes or whatever, plums into my yard. You put them all over the yard. My animal slipped and got injured. It's your fault. You have to pay. Again, if you came with permission, then the Baal Chotzer is chayiv. Permission meaning, again, what does that mean? Mashma that the Baal Chotzer took full responsibility. So if you come with permission, I'll guard it for you. I'll take care of it. Then the Baal Chotzer is the homeowner is responsible for the fruits as he was for the animal. As or as he was whatever the guy brought in, the jar, whatever it was. Similar, let's say you led your ox into I'm the homeowner's yard, shalovish without permission. We're at the top of the base. Now, your animal came into my premises without permission, and my animal gored your animal. So, or my dog bit your animal. I don't have to pay. Who asked you to bring your animal in there? Let's say you came into my permission, into my premises, and your animal damaged mine. Your animal damaged mine. Then of course you have to pay. You came in without permission. No, there doesn't seem to be a big chiddush in this. We'll talk in the Gemara. We're going to talk about these cases. Nafal boro. Your animal came into my premises, and I was having one of my workers in there, or let's say in my premises I had a pit. Behivish, Maimov, and your animal fell into the bore and ruined my water, made the water smell. I had a well there, and your animal fell and you ruined my water. You have to pay. Let's say the homeowner had one of his relatives. It could have been anybody. Just gives an example. His father or his son was working in the pit. Could be anybody where he had somebody in the pit there, Mishamas Kofar, and the animal fell in there, pays Kofar. Now, why does he pay Kofar? We'll see. We're talking about where he's a mui, that he usually falls in there when he sees grass or he sees some food near the bore, but he pays the Kofar. Because we had before that Kofar you pay even if it was unintentional, right? Even if you don't kill the animal, if it was unintentional, but the Kofar you still pay. If the animal's a mu'ay, that's the question. Is this a mu'ay or a tam? The Gemara will discuss that later on, not today. If he came with permission, so in all these cases we say, if he came with permission, the homeowner allowed you to come in, then the homeowner takes responsibility for any damage that was done. Rabbi Omer, but Rabbi says this is the machlokas Rabbi and the Chacham. Rabbi Omer b'kulan ein achayev at shekabel love bal habayis lishmor. That the owners, when I say come into my yard, that doesn't mean come into my yard and I'll guard your animal. Come into my yard and I'll take full assessment. It means if you want to come in my yard, you can come in my yard. I don't object if you come into my yard. But it doesn't mean that I'm responsible to guard your animal. That's what it's b'kulan ein achayev at shekabel until he takes it upon himself to guard. So the owner says, I'm going to guard it. Otherwise, I'm not chayiv for anything. Because he said in all these cases, if he came in with rishus, the Tanakama said, if he came in with rishus, he came in with rishus. Each case, he came with rishus. You brought either your jar or your fruits or your animal, whatever it was, came in. And if I accept the responsibility, I'm chayiv. Why am I chayiv? I just said, come in. You can use my premises. I mean, I'm responsible for it. That's going to be the discussion we're having with the Gemara. So the Gemara said in the first case, Tami Shlo B'Shus. Came in the first case, you put your jar in there in my premises without permission. Habrishus, you came with permission. Oh, that sounds like okay. If you come in with come without permission, and your jar damaged my animal slipped on it, whatever, and he hurt himself, then you're responsible. Mashma that if you came in with permission, habrishus, you're not mechoyev. The balkdev, the guy who brought the jar in, is not mechoyev for the damage done because you have permission to come in there, so I can't hold you responsible for hurting my animal. Let's go back to the below me. We don't say kibula kabel bal kadeus terus v'hemto the bal chotzer. We don't say wait a minute, wait. If you came with permission, you have permission, but don't do any damage. You're responsible, right? You don't say. You say if you came without permission, you're responsible for any damage that you've done. But if you came in with permission, then you say, Bashus, then the guy who brought the jar in is not responsible for damage that he did. Why do you say he's not responsible? Why don't you say permission means come in with permission, but you make sure you don't do any damage? Well, I don't say that. But I mean in Kibula Kabel Balkderis that the Balkderis who brought in the jar accepted with the responsibility. When he says come in with permission, you have permission. We don't say the Balkderis accepted responsibility for the animal of the Balchotzer. Who is that? That goes like Rebbe. It goes like Rebbe. The end of the Mishnah said, "B'kulan ein achayiv." You're never responsible unless you specifically accepted responsibility. When I say, it's pretty. I say, "Oh, you want to use my yard? No problem." But don't tell me you're responsible. Like today, what's the law? If a guy comes today, even if a burglar breaks into your house and slips on a toy, he can sue you, right? So you have what's the level of responsibility? It says over here, came without permission. If I put my jar in your premises and my jar damaged your animal, I have to pay. But if I have permission, I don't have to pay. Why don't you say, even if I have permission, but I accept the responsibility. You don't say that. That when I accepted, thank you for inviting me in. Does that mean I accept responsibility if my jar damaged? We don't say that. Money that goes like Rebbe Makol B'Stama. Stam, if you didn't say specifically I accept responsibility, liability, low kibbutz, you didn't accept regarding. Amos says that's what the beginning of the Mishnah says. That's the deduction, beginning of the Mishnah. Because you came without permission, you have to pay. Mashma, if you came in with permission, you don't have to pay. Because I came with permission, but I didn't accept responsibility. Amos Seifa, then in the Seifa it says, B'shus bal chotzer chayiv. Then it says, wait a minute, if you came with permission, the owner of the chotzer is chayiv. So that goes like Rabbana Dami B'Stam Nami Kabbalah. In other words, it says, if I came without permission, I have to pay. Mashma, if I came with permission, I don't have to pay. But then it says, if I came with permission, the Baal Chotzer has to pay. I have to pay. If I came with permission, that means that the owner says, yeah, come on in, and I will accept responsibility. Who does that go like? Not like Rebbe. Rebbe says at the end of the Mishnah, if I didn't specifically accept responsibility, and I don't have to guard. So when he says over here, that goes like Rabbanan, Stam, if I have permission, I'm accepting responsibility. Then at the end of the Mishnah, we just quoted that the Rebbe Omer you're not chayiv unless the balabayis is not chayiv until he accepts specific responsibility. So Reisha v'Seifa Rebbe, the beginning and the end of the Mishnah goes like Rebbe, Mitzias Rabbanan. The middle of the Mishnah goes like Rabbanan would say that if permission means I will guard it. You're right. The beginning of the Mishnah and the Mishnah goes like Rebbe. The middle of the Mishnah goes like Rabbanan. Rabbi says no. Different apples and oranges. Kula Rabbanan goes like Rabbanan, except for the part that Rebbe says. The whole Mishnah until Rebbe Omer goes like Rabbanan. Uveshus shmiras kideris kibul olav balachotzer ba'afilu nishbra beruach. This is what we mean. When the owner says you can come in and use my premises, right? You can come and use the premises. That means you're allowed to put your stuff in there. And if your jar damages my animal, that's you don't have to pay because you had permission to come in. But when I say you have permission to come in, right? Or when he says you can come in and use my premises, the owner is saying I accept responsibility. That's how Rebbe learns. You understand? The beginning of the Mishnah says you come in without permission and your jar damages my animal, I have to pay. Obviously, I came in without permission, right? Mashma that if I came in with permission, the Baal Kaderis doesn't have to pay. I don't have to. I had permission to leave my jar there, so I'm not responsible. Right? That's clear. I'm not responsible. Right? It says right afterwards. But if you came with permission, and and my animal breaks your jar, I do have to pay. So what does that mean? The answer is even the Rabbanan say yes. You don't have to accept responsibility. Rebbe says unless you specifically accept responsibility, you're never responsible, even if you say you're allowed to come in. Rabbanan say no. The Baal Chotzer who says come in, bring your stuff in, he accepts responsibility. That's the point. Rabban Merkula Rabbanan Rishus Shmiras Kederis Kibla. The Baal Kaderis, the person who brought the jar in, if he without permission, he has to pay. With permission, he doesn't have to pay. But the owner who says come in, he's effectively accepting responsibility. Now we don't pass like the Rabbanan, we pass like Rebbe, but that's Rabbanan Shita. Rabban Merkula Rabbanan Ubishus, when he says Rishus means Shmiras Kederos Kibla Allah Baal Chotzer. The Baal Chotzer, when he said come in, bring your stuff in, I'm accepting responsibility, I'll guard it. Even if the wind blew it, even if the wind broke it, I'm also responsible. Take a look at Rashi. There's not a lot of Rashi. Right about a little halfway down the page in Rashi, in the Rashi, the old entree comes. When he says come in, it means come out, I'll guard it for you, come late. The owner of the jars who brought it, he didn't accept any responsibility. If he came in without permission, he has to pay. With permission, he doesn't have to pay. He didn't accept any responsibility. He was just like, I can put my jars out. I didn't even know if you had animals. But when the owner says come in, according to the Rabbanim, the owner says come in means come in and I'll watch it. Okay, then the Mishnah said, go back in the Gemara right at the wide lines. So the Gemara begins the wide lines on Mem Zayin base. Here's the Peros of the Chasab Balabais. Amarav. Listen carefully. So we had different cases here. Seemingly they were all the same, right? Bought your jar without permission, bought your payers without permission, bought your animals. Each one's teaching us something else. So here we're talking about the payers. If a farmer, I had plums. Let's say I brought my plums and I put them in your yard without permission. What did the Mishnah say? If your animal, first of all, if my animal ate them, I don't have to pay. Who asked you to put your fruits in there? And if my animal slipped on them and got hurt, you have to pay. You came without permission. Okay. Amarav, first of the wide lines. Amarav, lo shana lo shulchuka. That's only if my animal slipped on them and fell and broke his leg, whatever. Aval ochla, but if he ate them, potter. If my animal ate your fruits, I don't have to pay for that, right? That's what it says. It says you brought your fruits in, right? Shalom and the animal ate them, potter. Okay. Bimhuska, wait a minute. Imhuska. So he said already potter. So what's Rav teaching me? Potter on eating them, right? On eating them, the owner doesn't have to pay. The owner of the yard doesn't have to pay because you brought your fruits into my yard. If my animal ate them, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Okay, but if my animal got injured, then you have to pay. That's only if he slipped on them. Aval ochla potter. Let's say the animal ochla potter. We mean over here. We're not talking about the owner of the animals. We're talking about the owner of the fruits. Let's say let's say I brought these fruits in to your yard. Your animal ate them all up and died from eating too many plums. That can do it. He ate too many plums and he died. After my time, Rav holds, listen, we asked him to eat it. He ate, the animal ate it. I didn't feed him, right? We said, the beginning of the Mishnah said, okay, if you brought your fruits in and my animal ate them, you want me to pay for the fruits? You had no business bringing them in, fine. And if my animal slipped on them, you have to pay. But if my animal ate them and died, the owner of the plums can say, I didn't ask you to eat them. You want to eat them? Yes. If you eat them, you don't have to pay me because I brought them in without permission. But if your animal died, who asked him to eat it? He doesn't have to pay. That's what Rav says. I'm Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes disagrees apparently. He says, Amina Kinayim v'shachav Rav Amar Shmai. This is a famous klal. Rav Sheshes always says that about Rav. I think Rav was half asleep when he said that. What do you mean? The tiny one, just because if I brought in, I enticed an animal, I put some fruits there and he ate them and he died, I'm not responsible to Tanya. I know since Sama Mobas, if you put some poison with Nebehemus Chavero, I considered doing this with the cats, but it's Balachayim. I know saying Sama Mobas with Nebehemus Chavero. If you put some poison in front of somebody else's animal, you have these, like there's a dog lives right below you, Naftali, that right on Achorish. You start going up the park, from Achorish, he's always screaming at you, sticking his head out there. Some of these dogs. I know some, my personal feelings come through on the Daf all the time here. I know saying some of us that maybe hang with Chavero. You put some poison in front of somebody else's animal. You're really potter because you didn't feed the animal. The animal had a choice not to eat it. Because you shouldn't have done it. Some of us because poison, not normally going to be eaten, so you're not responsible. I have payros, but if you put payros, which you're going to injure the animal. You put, not animals. Animals don't eat all kinds. Different animals eat different kinds of food. If you put payros, mashma that he would eat them. That's what medina or nam yachai. It's mashma you are chayiv. It says if you have poison, okay, the animal's not going to eat poison, so that's the animal's fault. But if I put fruits in front of the animal and the animal died, mashma I'm chayiv even medina on him. According to Rav says it was the animal's prerogative not to eat it. It's not my fault that the animal ate it. And Rav said, pardon?
You should know that the animal will eat.
Okay, but it's still the animal's prerogative to eat it. If the animal just finished lunch, not like humans. Humans, if they see food, they'll glob it up. And they, even if they're full, they can't keep their eyes on it. Animals usually they have their fill and they walk away. They're not worried about the next meal like us. So he had a choice not to eat it. That's what Rav said. According to Rav, why would you be chayiv over here? It's mashma that you're chayiv. If you gave him fruits and he died, you're chayiv. No. Who I did not feel perisnami potter. Potter medina. You're always potter. In Shemayim, you shouldn't have done it. But medina adam, you can't hold me responsible. The chiddush is that I feel sama mavas. Even if I put poison, that they're not even going to eat. You're chayiv medina Shemayim. That's the chiddush. That even some of us who asked them to eat the poison, you put some rat poison in front of a dog, you shouldn't have eaten it. Right? That the chiddush is even there, you're chayiv b'din shemayim. Or Iboy saying, I could tell you that some of us nami, even some of us were talking about not some of us the animals should have eaten bifrazta. It's a kind of grass, dahainu peri. In other words, it's a kind of grass the animals normally eat, but it is some call it St. John's wort or some sort of a grass or a herb that is poisonous, even though it looks appetizing to the animal. So we're talking about over here also, listen, some Muslim don't make a drush and say, oh, that's only if it's poison, but if it's regular food, you would be responsible. No, we're putting any kind of a food in front of an animal that he would eat. You're pater midinei adam. So Rav's teaching stands when he says that you're only responsible if I bring my fruits into somebody else's yard and an animal slips on them, that's my fault. I put a stumbling block in front of the animal. But if the animal ate them and died, not my fault because he didn't have to eat them. A woman knows that her neighbor has a grinder, a mill, like a little small mill, and she wasn't home and she went in without permission to grind some wheat. And the animal, the owner's animal was there and ate them. Potter. Okay, in other words, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay. The owner of the animal doesn't have to pay. You came without permission. I wasn't there. Why did you put your food in there? I'm not have to pay. Im huska, and if the animal got damaged by it, you're chayiv to pay. Presumably we're talking about the animal got damaged by eating it. The animal ate wheat. It was a kind of animal that doesn't eat wheat, and he ate the wheat. mashma, you have to pay. But my name, according to Rav, you didn't have the animal had the prerogative not to eat. Why are you responsible if this animal ate your wheat? He didn't have to eat the food. Amri, so he says, who said we're talking about eating? Is any better than Mishnah do Kim the Shehoch? When our Mishnah said if the animal was damaged by it, not that when the owner of the animal ate it, that the owner doesn't have to pay for consuming the food. The Mishnah said in Huskaban, if the animal slipped on it, if the animal got damaged, the owner of the fruits has to pay. Is there any better? Our Mishnah says in Huskaban, and we said, what does it mean if the animal got damaged? He slipped on him. All right, he slipped on him. So that's the go where the animal slipped on it. Then he's chayav to pay. But if the animal ate it and got hurt, died or whatever, or got injured, you don't have to pay because the animal had a choice not to eat it. So it's obvious you would have given that answer. How is this price different than the Mishnah? Mishnah says, Im huskaban, you're chayav to pay. And we said Rob said that's only if he slipped on it. But if he ate it, you're not responsible for the animal eating it and getting sick by eating it. So you can say the same thing over here. If he got damaged on them, it's much like he slipped them. Right? So that's a Behen says, Avalhacha Tani Muska, Mashma Huska, below Tani Behen. Achilu the it's Mash, we spoke about eating it because we talked about before. The first phrase was if the woman brought her wheat into somebody else's premises without permission, and the owner of the premises animal ate the wheat, so the owner doesn't have to pay because who asked you to come in there and leave your stuff there. So they were talking about eating, and then he says, also, if you got damaged by eating it, then you have to pay. So we talk about eating it. But the truth is that we're not talking about eating, we're talking about sleeping. The other one we answer, it doesn't make any difference. Huska, it's all the same. So therefore, again, Rav stands his ground and says if an animal ate something and he got injured by it, not the owner of the food. The owner of the food is not responsible. Tashma, another case. And you brought your shore into the chasabayis. This looks like our Mishnah, Shlobashus, but it goes to the Bryce, it's a different case here. But Achla, it looks like it. You brought your shore into somebody else's premises without permission. And the animal ate wheat, right, without permission. The hitras, and the animal had shilshul umeis, and he died putter, right? You brought your animal into my premises and ate my food, and you got damaged. That's your tough luck. If he came with permission, Baal Chatzar chayev. Baal Chatzar is chayev for damage done with his food to the other guy's animal. But why don't you say he shouldn't have to eat it? Why'd you have to eat it? You brought your animal to my premises and he ate my food. Now, if he came without permission, I'm not responsible. Who asked you to bring him in, right? But if he came with permission, I have to. Why? He didn't have to eat it. Who asked him to eat the food? According to Rav, it's if the animal ate food with or without permission, it shouldn't make any difference. I'm not responsible. The animal had a choice not to eat it. You had a choice not to feed it. Amarabba b'shus shlobashus comes. You're asking a difference with b'shus and shlobashus. Shlobashus was one right. B'shus when he accepted permission, shmira shomer kibulav, he accepted responsibility. Fil chonekas atzmo. Like we said before in the sheet of the Rabbanim, Rebbe said in the Mishnah that when I give you permission to come into my premises, I give you permission. You can come in. I'm not responsible for anything. Come in. I don't have an insurance policy. You want to come in, you can use my premises. I'm not responsible. Rabbanan said, no. Without permission, yeah, you have no permission. But if you have permission, permission means I'm going to guard it for you. Come in, leave your animal, I'll take care of it for you. Here also, when he says with permission, it says, why? Because when I say come into my premises, it means I'll guard your animal. I'll make sure nothing happens to him. I'll make sure he doesn't eat the wrong food. I'll make sure that the wind doesn't hurt him. I'll make sure I'll take care of him. That's what it means over here. And that's why the owner of the premises is responsible if the guy who came in with his animal ate the owner's food, because yes, normally you say he didn't have to eat it, but here he said I take full responsibility. Now when we say over here, person takes responsibility. Again, Rebbe says I don't take responsibility unless I say so. When I say come into my permission, you have permission to come into my premises, doesn't mean I'm taking responsibility. Rebbe's words, the end of the Mishnah was Bekulan Eino Chayav Anshi Kavalav Balabayis Lishmor, to guard it. Otherwise not. The Rabbanan say no. Stam, if I said come in, that means come in and I'll guard it for you.
Even if you say
I'm not responsible.
If you say I'm not responsible, then you're not responsible. But stam, the question is stam, when you didn't say anything, you didn't make any stipulation. Rebbe says stam means I don't accept any responsibility. The Rabbanan say stam means I accept full responsibility. So now the question is, when I said I am going to accept responsibility. Now, good that you made that point. I said I'm going to accept responsibility. According to Rebbe, that means even according to Rebbe, he says stam I don't accept responsibility. But if I say I'm going to accept responsibility, I'm accepting responsibility. And according to Rabbanan, it means even stam. The fourth line from the bottom of the page in Rashi, front of the page. When I accept responsibility, could go on the Rabbanan stam. Stam means I accept responsibility. Ula Rebbe Damarle Kunos Shor Chavanishman. But Rebbe says specifically, bring your shore in and I'll guard it. Now, what does that mean, a guard? Does it mean guarding? Now the Gemara asks, when you say you're going to go, again, according to Rebbe specifically, I said, so according to Rabbanan, it means stam. Only responsibility that I won't damage it, my property won't damage your property. Maybe it means I'll guard it, make sure nothing happens to it no matter what, even somebody else coming in. In other words, maybe it means I'll make sure my animal doesn't do it. I'll make sure that my property doesn't damage yours. Does it even mean I accept full responsibility if anything happens to it? Toshma, what do they call that? What does the insurance company call that? All cases, all contingencies, whatever. There's some word for it that I accept all responsibility. Everything's included. Toshma. Pardon? Yeah, like comprehensive, but that's for cars. But comprehensive means that in all cases there's like for regular stuff there's if it's in your house they guard one thing. If, let's say you want your jewelry that you're wearing, there's and all it covers you even if you're outside of your house, even if you're wearing it, whatever. But Tashma, the 4 lines from the bottom page in the Gemara. Tani Rav Yehuda bar Simon ben Azakin de Beikarna. Rav Yehuda bar Simon learned this in the Nezakin, in other words, in the halachas of damages, of torts, the Beikarna in Karna's yeshiva. Karna, the Gemara in Sanhedrin Zion that talks over there about whatever things. Karna was a judge in Golos. He was one of the Dayana de Golos called Karna. That was his name, Karna. So he said like this: so I brought my fruits in without permission. Right? Reuven was the owner of the property. Shimon brought his fruits in without permission and left them in Reuven's property. Levi brought his shore in and he ate the fruits. Yeah. No permission. Potter. Now, say over there, who's Potter? If he had permission, then you're chayav. Now, man Potter, man chayav. What are we talking about, Potter and chayav? Lav Potter bal chotzer, b'chayav bal chotzer. Isn't this the owner, Reuven, right? Shimon came in without permission, left his fruits there. Right? So he's saying, and now Levi brought his animal in there and ate him up. So then you're Potter without permission. We're assuming here Potter. We came with Rishus Yechai. Aren't we speaking about Potter, the Balabayas, Reuven, the owner? Potter, if Shimon brought the fruits without permission, and Chayiv, if he came with permission, indicating that when he came with permission, he accepted full responsibility, not just for his damage, but even if Levi brought his shore in, he's also responsible. Isn't that what it means? Man Potter, man Chayiv. La Potter bal chotzer uchayiv bal chotzer milo. Potter bal shor v'chayiv bal shor. The issue is Levi responsible? We're not talking about Reuben's responsibility over here. Could be Reuben his own responsibility. Number one, he didn't allow them in. Number two, even if he allowed him in, he only took responsibility that Reuben's own animals won't eat up the fruits. But if Levi, some other guy, came in, he's not responsible for that. That's what it means. Amrilo Potter bal shor v'chayiv bal shor. Doesn't mean be balashor, my b'shusa, my b'sholam shusika. If we're talking about the owner of the animal, Levi, right? What kind of b'shus and lo b'shus? What do you mean by b'shus and lo b'shus? He has no. What do you mean? It's just Levi can't. Shimon can't give b'shus to Levi to come in there. Amri b'shus b'shus. Here's what we mean. Like, what's the meaning of the b'shus over here? B'shus. If Shimon came into Reuben's b'shus with permission, so effectively he gave him permission. So the rishus of Reuben now is like the rishus of Shimon. Reuben allowed, says, Shimon, you can bring in your animals to my property. In other words, my property is like yours. You can share it now. So now, when Levi's animal came in to Reuben's rishus, which is also Shimon's rishus now, and ate the fruits, shem b'shus hanisik. That's the case of shem b'shus hanisik, right? I brought my animal to your yard and ate up your fruits. You're chayiv to pay nezik shalom. Shem b'shus hanisik, shem b'shus hanisik chayiv. You have to pay. That means permission. Shelo b'shus, but if it came without permission, shem b'shus harabim, shem b'shus harabim to. This isn't really b'shus harabim, but it means this: if Shimon had no permission to come into Reuben's property and he brought his fruits in there, so it's like leaving him in the street. Nobody's responsible. I'm not responsible for stuff. Reuben didn't even know he came in, right? And he brought his fruits in there, and then an animal ate them. So an animal ate them. An animal. It's not. When is Shane and Regel Chayiv? Only b'shus hanizik. This isn't b'shus hanizik. He had no permission to come in, and that's what we mean in Potter. But we're not. There's no indication here about did the owner accept full responsibility, even if somebody else did damage. You can't tell from that. Tashma, another proof like this. You brought Shimon brought his shore into Reuben's premises. And again, Levi's shore came in now and gored him. Potter, your Potter. He came with Rishus, Mithlas Rishus Chayev. Again, man Potter, man Chayev. What is Rishus and Rishus? What does it mean over here? In Karen, is there what do we mean? We're talking about goring over here. We're not talking about Shane eating up the fruits, right? We're talking about Reuben had a chatzer. Shimon brought his animal in, Shelo Rishus. And now Levi's animal went in there and gored him. Now with goring, it's Rishus and Lo Rishus, right? We said if it's with Rishus, then he's responsible. If without Rishus, he's Potter. Now man Potter and man Chayev, what are we speaking about over here? Again, here's the show. Man Potter or man Chayev. Who's Potter and Chayev over here? We're talking about the owner Reuben or Levi. La Potter balachotzer or Chayev balachotzer. Don't mean that. If it came with permission, I'm responsible to guard it. Even if the damage was done by Levi, somebody else, that proves this question. Chayev balachotzer lo. Again, Potter balashor or Chayev balashor. Is Levi's animal, is Levi responsible or not? What's the difference in Rishus Lobishus? Either way, Karen is Chayev, even Rishus Rabim also, right? What's the difference? If Levi's animal gored Shimon's animal, what's the difference if he came in with Rishus or not? You're Chayev either way, right? Rashi says, the Karen ain't chilik ben chatzar and izik Rishus Rabim. Yeah, but if you're talking about is Reuben responsible? I know the Shlobishus Potter ain't you have to guard him. But if you're talking about the Levi's responsibility because his animal gored Shimon's animal, what's the difference if it's with Rishus or not? What's the difference if Shus Rabim Rishus? And it's like Amri Hamani Rav Tafra goes Rav Tafra. Amri, we had this back on Yadalad. Mushuna Karen b'chatzar and izik. The unusual Karen. Remember, Shane and regular things that an animal normally does. He's a mu'id. If he's in somebody else's property, he's going to step on it and he's going to eat it. That's normal. Karen is unusual because he's going to gore. Animal's not usual, does that. He says, Karen b'chatzar nezik nezik shalom v'shan. When do you pay a tam chatzin nezik? Only Rishus Rabim, but Rishus nezik Rab Tarfon holds, you pay nezik shalom. Rishus, if he came in with permission, avalei Karen b'chatzar nezik. If Shimon's animal came into Reuben's premises with permission, so again, Reuben's premises is like Shimon's premises. That means that when Levi brought his animal in there and an animal gored Shimon's animal, that's Karen b'chatzar nizik, mashal nezik shaling. Shalobashus, if Shimon came into Reuben's premises without permission, avalei Karen b'shus rabim, so it's like Karen b'shus rabim, you had no permission to be there. Karen b'shus rabim mashal elachatzi nezik. So therefore, when it says over here, back in this beginning of this case in the fifth line, in the Gemara, Potter from Nezik Shalom, but you're still Chayiv Chatzi Nezik because we're talking about a Tam who's Chayiv Chatzi Nezik. Even Rishus Rabim came without permission. It's like Rishus Rabim Chatzi Nezik. In Nechus B'Shus, if he came with permission of Reuben, so therefore Reuben's premises is like Shimon's premises, and therefore when Levi came in there, it's like Karen B'Shus HaNezik, and according to Tarfon, you pay Nezik Shalom. Hayas a story. They'll also Lemeifa, a woman came in with permission. She came in to bake Bahu Beis in a certain house. She came with permission. Also Barcha Demare de Beisa, the goat of the owner of the house was there. Ochlo Leisha ate the dough, got sick. Chavil got sick by eating the dough. Ate, I guess, plain dough wasn't baked. Umeis and the animal died. Chayva Rava Lishlume Demei Barcha. And Rava held the woman, the baker, responsible. She came with permission. He held her responsible to pay for the goat. Lema pligat Rav. L'chora, this disagrees with Rav. Dam Rav Havilei Shalecha. Who asked the animal to eat? I'm responsible to pay for. Came with permission. I'm responsible to pay for the goat eating it. Who asked the animal to eat it? He shouldn't have eaten it. I could compare. There he came without permission. Lo kabel of netirusa. Okay, there when he came without permission, he didn't accept responsibility. Here she came with permission. She accepted responsibility. Wait a minute. What do you mean she accepted responsibility? Rebbe certainly says you don't accept responsibility, Stam, unless you say it. Even the Rabbanan who said Stam, you accept responsibility, that means the owner accepts responsibility. Here we're talking about the person who came in with the food. Where did they accept responsibility? And Rashi points out that the man comes with Bishus, accepts responsibility. He doesn't. Again, in the first case, when he came with permission to bring his jar into the chutzner, I didn't accept responsibility or accept responsibility if your animal is going to eat my food. You didn't accept responsibility for that. The owner accepts responsibility, not the person who's coming in. How is this different than the case we had before? We had a case before, and I'm at base at the 2 dots. If a woman came in to grind wheat, she came in to use her neighbor's mill without permission, okay, the animal came without permission. The animal ate your food. You can't hold the owner of the house, the owner of the animal, responsible for eating your food and you lost your food. Im huska, if it was damaged, you're chayvus, right? You're chayv to pay. Why you chayv? Time is shelo b'rshus came without permission. Ha b'rshus potter. If you came with permission, you're not responsible for damage that you did to the animal, like the case of the jar, the case of the food before. You're not responsible. However, you came with permission, you don't have to pay. Amri. So how do you say over here if you came with permission? Why was the Rav Mechayev her to pay for the goat? Amri litchan chitan. Keeping the little boy in Sanusa to grind food doesn't require any privacy. So when you came to grind food, the low boy Sanusa midi doesn't need any privacy. You could do it even in front of other people. Low boy misalkam rafsa the chatzon nafshayu. The owner didn't have to leave the premises. Well, the day Ramani Terusos, therefore, the owner of the premises should have guarded it. You came in with permission, right? You came in with permission. The owner should have guarded his animal from eating. So therefore, if the animal ate over there, in huska came with pershus, you don't have to pay for the animal eating it. The animal got hurt by it because the owner should have guarded the animal. But to bake, even the bite snooze, it needs privacy because when you bake, she has to expose her arms, etc. She puts the food in and out of the oven, etc. Her arms are exposed. So when she came in with permission to bake, she basically got permission to have that whole room, the whole kitchen, let's call it, the bakery, to herself. The owner couldn't stay there. The boy Snusa, Marva said, she has to leave. Therefore, the woman herself, the baker, accepted responsibility. This case is different than the other cases. The other cases before, if you came in with permission, so the owner is going to accept responsibility for what goes on over there. Even responsible if you brought your animal, I'm responsible to guard it. If you brought your animal in, I'll make sure that the animal doesn't eat. My animal shouldn't eat your food, etc. There he accepts responsibility. But over here, where she came in to bake and she had permission, effectively said you have exclusionary rights. In other words, you have sole rights to this bakery, and we're going to leave. Therefore, if my animal ate your dough without, when you accept responsibility to make sure that my animal wouldn't get injured, and therefore you had to pay. But normally, Rav stands his ground that if an animal ate something and got injured by it, tough luck for the animal because who asked him to eat it? In this case, it's different because she accepted full responsibility because she said, I'm going to take over this room and nobody else, nothing should be there. So if the animal is there, she should have guarded to make sure that the animal doesn't eat it. But otherwise, you're not responsible if your animal eats something up. And in terms of the question, when the owner accepts full responsibility, even in the case of Rebbe where he said specifically, I accept responsibility, you can come in and I accept responsibility. And according to the Rabbanan Stam means when you come, it means I accept responsibility for what I do, not for what somebody else does. We can prove that question. All right, we'll pick up your 2 dots tomorrow.
For you to understand, she had permission to use the kitchen,
Right.
okay? So then it's up to the Balabaya to guard his animal that shouldn't come in. Why should she be hired?
She had
Now that he
permission,
came-
right.
The animal came in.
The
and
animal,
ate,
no,
got sick and
the
died.
animal was there already. The animal, the owner wasn't home. The owner had a goat. The goat was in the bakery of the house, the kitchen, whatever. And she says, "You want to go in there? Yeah, you can. You take over. You're responsible for anything that takes place in there." Obviously, if the goat was in the barn, shouldn't have come in there. That's a different thing. But basically in this case, the guy wasn't home. The owner wasn't home. Said, take what you can use my premises to bake, but should have made sure that nobody gets hurt.
So when the meter reader comes to your